What problems are you dealing with in your life right now?
Do you feel like giving up? Times are hard and you're not strong. Well, I know the answer for you, and it will lead to real truth. Don't look back to yesterday.
Now there are answers.
Tomorrow's on the
Welcome to
way.
Live Prayer.
It's waiting.
And welcome to Live Prayer. I am Bill Keller. It's good to be with you on this Friday evening. I pray you had a great day. It's good to be back with you after a short 23-hour turnaround. If you're new to the program, you are watching Live Prayer. We come to you live and in living color every Monday through Friday, 11 to midnight Eastern Daylight Time. And wherever you may be across this great nation of ours, sea to shining sea, border to what was a border for a little while, thank you for tuning in tonight. And for our friends in other far-off great lands, welcome to you as well. I'm Bill Keller, founder of LivePrayer.com. We're the world's largest interactive Christian website. Reach a little over 2.5 million folks every day via the internet. Please check us out online. Web address is coming up on your screen, LivePrayer.com. When you get there, don't be shocked when you see nothing to buy. I've got nothing to sell you, no advertising. 22 years of Frontlines ministry content in a very easy to navigate website, literally thousands upon thousands upon thousands of content, hours of content, all available for free, all to be a blessing to you. Take some time, go through the site. I know it'll be something that you will enjoy and be edifying to you. Let's see, we've got a huge program tonight. I'm going to be real quick because we've got a lot of content to get to tonight. Some really important content tonight. I'm going to come right out of the box and I want to talk to you about the one world government, the one world economy, the one world religion, and the Antichrist. I'm going to start right off the bat with that, but don't go away because I've got a lot of other things. The reason I'm going to start with that tonight is so much of what I'm going to share with you tonight ties back into this. So stay tuned. By the way, just for information's sake, looks like Facebook and Twitter are really throttling us in terms of our ability to reach people. We haven't been, by the grace of God, we haven't been like shut down or anything, but they're really throttling our reach and really limiting a little bit. I mean, people can still find us because everything I put on our Facebook and Twitter page are public, but we're just having a hard time getting messages to people about things that's, coming up on the show, things like that, because I've noticed a little bit drop in the numbers, but we still got great numbers. By the way, Roku's back up. If you're a Roku person, that is a great way because it's right on your regular TV, full HD, and when you go to our, just search for Live Prayer. It'll pop right up and put it in your station list. And the good thing is Roku now gave us the ability to archive like the last 5 or 6 shows. Now you can find all of our old programs if you miss one on our Live Prayer YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter pages. And again on Roku, they keep that last 4 or 5, but we have all of the old programs going back to when we changed to digital on Thanksgiving of 2018 on our YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook pages. So you can find all the old programs there. Lots of great content. Let's see, what else do I want to mention to you? Oh, if you need a church to go to this Sunday, if your church is still shut down or you need to augment your church service, maybe Sunday's not a good day for you, maybe Monday, Wednesday afternoon, Thursday morning at 1 a.m., the Live Prayer Church. If you go to our website, scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see a link for the Live Prayer Church. And it's about a 40-minute church service. I know it'll be a blessing to you. And again, it's there 24/7. We change it every Sunday morning at midnight. So just be aware of that as well. All right, let's have a word of prayer and we'll get started. Father, thank you for tonight. I appreciate, Lord, each night that we can come together in your name and talk about the things that we need to know and understand. Even though it's been 18 years, Lord, each program is special and unique, and we're grateful for each time we gather. I thank you for my friends who are part of this audience tonight. I pray for them and their families. I pray for their needs tonight. We're grateful for this day you blessed us with, all the many blessings we've enjoyed this day. And now, Lord, open our hearts and minds so we can clearly hear and receive from you tonight all you have for us. And we thank you for it. In the name of Jesus, amen and amen. All right. One world government. Because of the United States' unique position in the world, and I've shared this before, I never could, because I was in the markets back in the 80s, I could always see how one day there could be a one world economy. And while we're a global economy, it's not really a one world economy because you still have the different countries with their own currency and all that. But I could see how it could all merge into one. I always understood that. One world religion I never had a problem with either, because at some point it'll be some mishmash of New Age and feel-good spirituality, all that Deepak Chopra, leading souls straight to hell garbage, right? So I understood that too. The one world government, though, always kind of puzzled me because, again, primarily because of our standing in the world. When the European Union was formed, okay, that looked like a small precursor to what could be the start of a one world government. But again, because of our position, but with what's going on in the country right now, let me tell you something. As far as the one world government goes, it's forming right now. And again, boy, I hope you're with me back in 2019, because many nights we talked about this whole battle between nationalism and globalism. And we now have globalists dominating Europe, globalists dominating the African continent. Globalists still have a ways to go with much of Asia. They've got a good foothold in South America, and they're sure making a run at the United States. So it's the globalist overtaking countries around the globe that could easily form into a one world government. It's very easy to see this coming together. It really is. One world economy. I'm going to talk to you more about the economy and where I see things heading on Monday night. So don't miss that. But between the incredible debt that every country is carrying, between the smoke and mirrors of cryptocurrency, again, so much of this being controlled by the globalists. And when I talk about the globalists, I'm not talking about some conspiratorial cabal. I'm talking about people that want power. They've already got money, because the only reason they've got power is because they already had money. And it's a few. It's the Davos crowd. It's a very select group of people, no one person. So hang with me, because we know there's going to be one person eventually called the Antichrist, right? So the one world economy, it is very easy to see how that could come together very quickly, especially if countries start failing on their debt. They're not able to meet their debt needs. If you remember a few years ago, Greece was defaulting, and the World Bank and different countries the IMF kept pumping money into them, because all it takes is one country, even small as Greece, to collapse, and the domino effect would just ripple throughout the whole globe. So we've got that. One world religion. This kind of inspired me tonight. Let me talk to you about what's happening at the Vatican in next week. They've got a conference. And when I read about this conference, bulbs started flicking in my head. And if this wasn't like the dawning or the precursor of the one world religion, I don't know what is. This conference is an interplay of mind, body, and soul. Now, granted, please don't, one thing's very critical that you understand. This is coming out of the Vatican. It's being held in Rome at the Vatican, completely put on by the Catholic Church, and there are 1.8 billion followers around the globe, right? And this conference is called an interplay of mind, body, and soul. They've got over 100 speakers there. Let me tell you a few of the names. Deepak Chopra, that New Age guru from hell. Chelsea Clinton. I mean, I'm sure she's a very fine lady and intelligent, but why is she at the Vatican? Cindy Crawford, supermodel, got it. What's she doing there? Our buddy Mini Doc, Fauci's going to be there. Renee Fleming, great opera singer. What's she there for? Jane Goodall, the ape lady? Joe Perry, rock and roller. And about 100 more. Most all these people are pro-abortion, not just pro-abortion, like staunch abortion advocates. This is like a mishmash of ecumenicalism. Now, don't forget, one thing I've always tried to warn you about this current Pope is he's very ecumenical. That means he basically wants to bring all the religions together. Listen, if Christianity is truth, then everything else is a lie. And the problem with ecumenicalism is you get these gatherings of Jews and Muslims and Christians and Sikhs and all that. Christians are always supposed to keep their mouth shut about Jesus, tone down our beliefs, yet these other false religions are allowed to spew their nonsense. Ecumenicalism is a lie from the pits of hell. There's only one truth that comes from God's word. If we believe what God's word is, then all the rest is a lie. And you've got major U.S. media figures like Katie Couric, Robin Roberts, Amy Robach, Sanjay Gupta, Meredith Vieira. They're going to be like moderating this mishmash of insanity. I mean, what is the Vatican doing? Well, I'll tell you exactly what they're doing. This is exactly how the one world religion is going to be ushered in. It could very well be ushered in by the Roman Catholic Church. Now, I know there's a million theories out there about who the Antichrist is. I've always held that the Antichrist is going to be a man, a single man, not a woman, not an institution. The Catholic Church is not the Antichrist, but the Catholic Church, with their worldwide connection, could easily morph into this socialist, New Age, feel-good, spiritual, gobbledygook stuff that would melt into a one-world religion. So we've got the globalists well on their way to basically making all the nations of the world pretty much the same. They got problems with China right now, but again, this hasn't all come together yet. But I'm giving you the outline. The one world currency, the one world economy, that could happen very easily. All it takes is one country to default, and we could find ourselves into some sort. And then the one world religion, and this abomination at the Vatican next week is the way a one world religion would actually form, and you would actually come out with a one world religion like that. That leads us to one other part of this puzzle, the Antichrist. I've always told you that the Antichrist is going to be a problem solver. Okay? He's going to be the one that's going to bring all the countries of the world into that one world government. He's going to have answers that is going to make it easy for all the nations to just come under that umbrella. One world economy. Trust me, the person who solves the problem when the economies of the world start crashing, and we're closer to that than anybody understands. I've warned you about that for what? If you've been watching my program, the whole 18 years I've been on TV and the 22 years I've been writing the daily devotion, I've been warning you about the economies crashing in this world because they're all on just razor's edge. So the man that could have the answer to putting a one world economy together in the midst of that crash so people can eat and so people can, live their daily lives in some form. Okay, again, great problem solver. And the easiest thing for him to pull together will be a one world religion. Because out of the 7 billion people on the planet, it would be easy to pull 5 billion fairly quickly into some kind of a religious umbrella of New Age, spirituality, all that stuff. Now, do I think the Antichrist is alive right now? I don't know. Could be. I reject the people that think it's going to be one of these big tech oligarchs like Jack at Twitter or Zuckerberg. Listen, these are just people that hit on an idea. I mean, Zuckerberg basically stole Facebook from those twins at Harvard, okay? I mean, these guys just, right time, right place, right idea, kind of like Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban's a smart guy, but Mark Cuban made his money back in the mid-'90s because he went to Indiana, wanted to listen to Indiana basketball, so he got some of his tech buddies together, and they figured a way to put basketball so people anywhere could listen to it, and it became broadcast.com that he ended up selling off a few years later for over $1 billion. So a lot of it's luck. The Antichrist is not going to be a person of luck. Because don't forget, the Antichrist is going to be truly from the pits of hell. But we're there. We are there. We are at a place right now in world history where we could see the pages of Revelation literally come to pass. We're not that far away from it. The pieces are there. The way it could happen. Yeah, I've told you before, back when I was in seminary, 30 years ago. Again, I could always see how a one world economy could come into play, right? Never could see a one world government. Never could see a one world religion because I was still naive enough to think that, our Christian faith around the world would prohibit that, but we've seen such a drain right now. Never could fully comprehend one person being able to pull all that together. But with everything that's going on in this world, especially as of late, we are closer to all of this than anybody can understand. Closer than anybody can understand. And I'll tell you what's made some of this possible is how the globalists have taken advantage of the Chinese flu. It's crushed countries. It's crushed economies. It's forced churches to shut down all over the world, right? And again, it only takes a couple events to bring all this together. And then, of course, it's going to take that one individual that's going to rise up in the power of Satan and have the answers that listen, when you're hungry, when you have no electricity, I mean, when you're just literally living day to day, somebody comes up and says, okay, here, I'm going to fix some of these problems for you. At least you're going to be able to live. And I mean, people say, yeah, okay, good, thank you, right? So just kind of put that, just slot that somewhere, okay? All right, let me get to a bunch of other things, and I wanted to lay that foundation because it's something that I'm going to be bringing up every now and then as events are happening that actually could impact that, right? That's why it was so important to bring this up tonight at the beginning of the program, because this is going to be one of those issues like we had back in 2019. We had so many issues in 2019. Telling people to buy guns. Why I got emails. Why are you telling us to buy a gun, Bill? I'm not telling you to buy a gun. I'm told you to pray about exercising your Second Amendment rights. Boy, and it's all the things that we talked about in 2019, how so much of that came full circle in 2020. And how so much of what we talked about in 2020 has come full circle as we're now 15 months into God's judgment. One thing that's going to drive this country into the ground is this whole illegal immigration situation. You got states giving lump sum payments of 5, 10, 20 grand to illegal aliens. When these people get in this country, their housing is going to be taken care of, their food's going to be taken care of, their medical is going to be taken care of, their kids are going to get educated. In the meantime, we got U.S. citizens that are really hurting, especially after 15 months of this Chinese flu and the lockdowns in so many places. It's just crushed people. Yet we're giving all this aid to illegal aliens. We got homeless. How many nights did we talk about the homeless problems in this country? And I understand, from talking about, we know most of all of them have mental illnesses. Most of them ended up becoming addicts by being on the street, right? But still, if we got all these billions to spend on illegals, shouldn't we be taking care of our own people? And the vets. You want to talk about the vets? So many of our vets are hurting. Again, I'm as charitable as anybody. I'm as open as anybody to helping the poor and the deaf. I mean, that's part of our Christian faith. But as a nation, what are we going to do? Have all 7 billion people on the planet come live here for free? Because at the end of the day, probably 80% of this rush into our country are going to be on government assistance. The other 20%, they're going to be taking jobs from usually low wage earners. It's a complete lose-lose. And I'm not even talking about the crimes like the sex trafficking and the drugs and the gangs and all the violence that's coming in the country. That's a whole nother issue. Ashley was the woman, 14-year-old Air Force vet, Ashley Babbitt. She's the only one that got killed in the Capitol on January 6th. She was killed by a black officer of some kind. We don't even know if he's a Capitol Hill cop, if he was maybe Secret Service. We don't know. And the media, crickets, nothing. She's the only one that was actually killed unarmed, no warning, and yet no charges were filed. Matter of fact, they just determined the other day that no charges will be filed. We don't even know who the person who killed her is. They've kept that hidden from everybody. The media obviously doesn't care. They're not pushing it. But there's no riots. Nobody was burning down buildings. Nobody was assaulting police. No riots. Yet then on the flip side, you got a white female cop in suburban Minneapolis, 26-year-old vet. She was charged within 24 hours. I mean, they couldn't even had an investigation in that time. You knew who she was in the first hour. They had her picture all over the place in the first hour. They're rioting, burning things down, assaulting police. They've turned another criminal into a victim, a martyr. This guy's no martyr. Once again, it's like all the other ones. If he had obeyed the commands of the police, he'd be alive today. But the reason he was trying to flee was because he had warrants for home burglaries, where he held a woman at gunpoint and robbed her. And another weapons charge. But of course the media doesn't tell you about that. They just turn him into the sympathetic figure. Now listen, was it horrible that she pulled her service revolver instead of her taser? Yeah, terrible mistake. And she's going to pay some price for that, no doubt. But the media coverage between that incident and what happened on 1/6 in the Capitol is so profound. And again, the next day when she had her arraignment, they had her mugshot on TV all over the place, everything. We still don't know who killed Ashley Babbitt. And nobody seems to want to know who it was either. The media doesn't even talk about it. The only person that died, the only person that was murdered in the Capitol on 1/6 was this unarmed 14-year Air Force vet, and crickets from the media. Oh. I should probably say this till Monday because I don't want to ruin anybody's weekend. But listen, I have to listen. I come here each night to tell you the truth, what's going on. So at least you understand. Again, one of the greatest assets in this world is information. Let's go back to this vax passport issue. I know people are getting tired of hearing about it, but you better get used to hearing about it because it's going to be part of your life. I guarantee you that. Just like I told people back in the year 2000, if the Christian church didn't rise up and just stayed pretty much apathetic for the most part, you were going to have men legally marrying men, women legally marrying women. Oh, Bill, you're just being crazy. You're fear-mongering. You're just being, that's hyperbole. It's never going to happen. Yeah, okay. Big tech. Well, I told you last night that you're going to have job applications probably in the real near future, that are going to require you to have proof of vaccination if you want to work at that company. How companies are going to deal with existing employees, that's going to be interesting. But I can guarantee you it won't be long if you're going to work for a major organization on your human resources package, you're going to have to prove you've been vaccinated. Watch. But here's another one now. You've got big tech and the major banks, payment businesses like PayPal. They're working and trying to figure out how to basically cut off people who don't have the vaccination from banking. Now, as long as we started tonight in Revelation, let's stay with Revelation. Do you remember in Revelation when it talks about the mark of the beast? And it says, without the mark, you can neither buy nor sell. I told you a couple weeks ago, if you were part of that program, that once the vax passport becomes widespread, at some point, somebody's going to say, hey, let's just put it on a chip and stick it on your hand. Well, you got the banks and the major tech companies out trying to figure out basically how to ban people from being able to bank that don't have proof of the vaccine. They haven't been vaccinated. No vaccine, no banking. Now, I know there's people watching me right now. They're thinking, oh, this man's out of his mind. This is crazy talk. Yeah, okay. All right. Remember this night. I mean, we're talking about a system basically that's going to basically prohibit certain people from being able to conduct commerce. Well, that's right out of Revelation. By the way, Facebook, if you aren't a fan of Black Lives Matter, do yourself a favor and don't post anything in Facebook about Black Lives Matter negative, because that's on their radar now. They're taking down accounts. You got this. I got to tell you something. I was so embarrassed today. You had the Japanese Prime Minister at the White House today. First of all, do you remember whenever a foreign dignitary would come to the White House, Donald Trump and Melania Trump would be there at that west portal and greet them as they drove up? I don't know if you paid attention or watched that. Joe Biden couldn't be bothered. Eventually, the first person to meet with the head of Japan, the prime minister, was Kamala Harris. That's unheard of to have a vice president. That's like such a slap. And when her first thing out of her mouth was talking about the shooting in Indianapolis last night. We're going to talk about that in a minute. I mean, here we are with the world leader, and it's like she's has to say something bad, you know, how sad it is that this country has another mass shooting and stuff. And then Biden does the same thing. And by the way, they had a Rose Garden little press conference like they always do. They only allowed a handful of carefully selected press to be at the press conference. Normally, that's a wide open event for all the White House press pool. They just had it, and of course, they blame the Chinese flu for limiting the press people that could be there. And I promise you, as always happens at this White House, the questions were pre-screened. Promise you that. Guarantee you that. That's why they wouldn't let a Newsmax or a Fox or anybody like that anywhere near that thing. And I got to tell you something. I can only imagine Biden and his incoherence and his crazy talk, what the Prime Minister of Japan must be telling his people about. By the way, speaking of that, Hideki Matsui, he's a great golfer from Japan. He came from way back last Saturday and Sunday and won the Masters. Green jacket, one of the great, golf tournaments every year, right? Joe Biden looks at the Japanese Prime Minister and says, yeah, I saw your Japanese boy won the Masters. Won the green jacket, that Japanese boy. First of all, Hideki Matsui is a grown man. He's not, but that is... All right, let's talk about Indianapolis. First of all, workplace killing. Second of all, he was on the FBI and local law enforcement's radar a year ago. His mother called the authorities last year and said her son has some mental health issues. She's afraid he's going to do something violent. She said she's afraid that he's going to basically commit suicide by cop. Yeah, that's basically where you confront the police officer, force them to shoot you dead, right? A year ago. That's who the shooter was. Of course, we know he went to the FedEx facility there in Indianapolis, where he used to work Now, what his beef was with his old job, who knows? But obviously, like in all of these situations, you've got a major mental health issue. And here's another situation where he was on the cops' radar. How many of these have we had? Remember the Muslim that shot up the Pulse nightclub in Orlando? That guy and his father was on the FBI's radar. The kid that on Valentine's Day a couple years ago that killed those students at the high school in Fort Lauderdale. They had him on the radar. I don't know what's happened to law enforcement. I really don't. Again, this is a mental health situation, and I also will put some of the blame on the lockdowns. Let me go back to something that I've shared with you many times. If you're a regular to the program, you've heard me talk about this. Years ago, a very good friend of mine, who's a very well-renowned psychologist, told me, Bill, next time you're at the grocery store and there's 10 people in line, you and 9 other people, no 2 of those people have no business being in public without supervision, without a chaperone. I mean, that is how mentally ill they are. 2 out of 10. Okay? Well, we know that whatever you can talk about, whatever you can claim about the Chinese flu the last 15 months, whatever mental health issues have been greatly exacerbated over the last 15 months because of these lockdowns. Now, obviously, everybody has got to take responsibility and all of that. But the bottom line is, this is not a gun issue. Before they even knew anything about it, you already had people politicize it. Here we go with the guns again. Here again, Kamala Harris in the White House today. Before she even says hello to the Japanese Prime Minister, she's sitting there talking about this horrible country, another gun, another mass shootings. And Biden does the same thing. What a horrible country. Hey, listen, you want to politicize outside the situation where we're on a world stage with a world leader. I mean, that's just embarrassing for the country. But see, they don't love this country. They don't care about this country. So that's why they do it. And then you got in San Antonio. Officer stops a car for a quote-unquote routine traffic stop. Just so you understand, there's no such thing as a routine traffic stop. He's fired upon, gets hit in the hand, ends up killing the driver and the passenger. Yet they want police officers to, not be armed when they make routine traffic stops. Oh, Fox News, one of their anchors is Shannon Breen. She wrote a book, it's been out just recently, called The Women of the Bible Speak. #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. Hunter Biden's book came out last week. I don't even know where it ranks. He hadn't even sold 10,000 copies of that book. And now you've got the media whining, and they're saying, well, conservative books sell so much because they cheat. What they're saying is conservatives have these groups that will buy like 20,000 books at a time or something. No, the fact is, obviously people, because anytime, pretty much any conservative author does very well with their books. And then you get these New York Times, Washington Post people, whatever, their books just never go anywhere. I mean, I guess if you want to read fiction and fairy tales, go get a color and go get a comic book. Listen, I have put this off for 2 nights, but I'm sorry because the media is really playing this up. I've got to talk. Pat Robertson's family needs to keep him off the air. He is senile. I mean, every time he gets on the air, he's saying something that is just, I mean, I honestly have left it alone because there's been 3 or 4 times in the last year that he's been on the air. He's not on much, but it's like every time he gets on, he says just crazy things. He was on the air after this shooting in the suburb of Minneapolis where the police officer thought she was tasing the guy and using her service revolver. And he's out there ranting and raving about police brutality. I mean, I'm telling, and the only reason I'm talking about it is because the mainstream press, they're just eating it up. I mean, you would think Pat Robertson was working for CNN when you listen to this rant about the police. Again, it's just, you know, I mean, we've got enough things going on. We don't need, you know, people that are quote unquote on our side, you know, giving these other people ammunition. Franklin Graham, you know, one of the few guys out there that uses his platform to try to get the word into the mainstream. One of the few guys. I got to disagree to some extent with something he said today. He said God's judgment is coming. Christians need to pray. Here's my problem with that. Number one, I believe, as you know, God's judgment has been falling for 15 months. And just if you haven't been watching, the reason I state that so emphatically is we had a lot of health of these outbreaks, these potential pandemics over the years. SARS, MERS, Ebola, you know, swine flu, H1N1, right? We had all that. And they were all predicted to be like global pandemics, but they all petered out pretty quickly. When we were 3 months into the Chinese flu last year, and it wasn't going away, it was getting worse. And then we got into the month 5, month 6, it wasn't going away, it was getting worse. And it wasn't just here, it was worldwide, and it wasn't going away, it was getting worse. I said, yeah, it's starting. And then I told you that, you know, a real signpost for what God's doing with this country will be that November election. And, you know, even though it's very obvious it was stolen, the bottom line is Joe Biden's president. The Democrats control the House. The Democrats control the Senate. And I told you that if that happened, that was just a furtherance of that judgment. So I disagree with Franklin in the sense that I think God's judgment is upon us now. It's been falling for 15 months. The other thing he said, though, that bugs me a lot is he said Christians need to pray. Listen, I agree. We've got to pray. Everything starts with prayer. Matter of fact, when we started the action steps a month or so ago, prayer was one of the first things that we talked about, right? In preparation, right? But here's the problem. Christians are good at praying, but they're terrible at action. You know? Satan's people don't pray, they just act. And all I'm saying is, yes, we must pray. That's absolutely true. But prayer is not enough. You know? Paul didn't sit in the upper room praying for the last 30, 40 years of his life. He got out there and made things happen. Okay? We're not going to turn this country around, you know, with prayer only. That has to be a foundation. I agree with Frank 100%. Got to be a foundation. But we've got to act. Again, we do the praying part really good. But, you know, real prayer, real faith requires action. You read Hebrews 11 about the heroes of faith. You know, I'm sure they all prayed. But they became heroes of the faith, not because they just prayed, but because they acted. They, you know, real faith Real living faith requires action. Now in school, you don't have to spell words correctly. And if you're a teacher and you make your students spell things correctly, that's racist. Math answers don't have to be exact. In other words, 2 plus 2 doesn't have to be 4. You know, if somebody thinks it's 6, that's fine. And if you say it's 4 and 4 alone, that's racist. And Monday I'm going to talk to you about what's going on in K through 12, another topic Monday you really don't want to miss. Biden administration today overturned a Trump ban on fetal tissue research. In other words, Trump banned all research using fetal tissue. Where do you think that comes from? ISIS is in Africa big time right now. They are targeting African countries that are Christians. We've talked about this a lot. Asked you to pray for our Christian brothers on the continent of Africa because they are really under siege, and ISIS is just being brutal as Muslims always have been brutal. Beheadings, skinning people alive, just horrible stuff. And sadly, it's not getting much attention at all. Again, I mean, if nothing else, we should, our human rights organizations, I mean, our churches should be screaming about this, but our government, from a human rights perspective, should be doing something, but I guarantee you that's not very high on their priority list. You know, I read this today, and I read it again, and it just kind of made me sad to an extent. RV sales are through the roof. If you're an RV dealer, you're living large these days. You probably can't keep enough RVs in stock. And of course, the natural question then becomes, well, why are RV sales at record high, Bill? Because people can't afford a home. And they're literally living in an RV. A lot of them are driving around, parking at these RV parks where they hook up their electricity or whatever. You got people working at companies that have their RV parked in the company's parking lot, living in their RVs. I mean, listen, God bless them. It's better than being homeless, but it just just struck me as kind of sad. Listen, I understand. A lot of people like that RV lifestyle. I understand. A lot of people get older. They retire. They get an RV and they want to go see the country. I get all that. That's not what this is about. These record RV sales, aren't about that. The records are coming because you got so many people that don't have a home, and they scrape together what they can to buy an RV, and they're literally living in their RV. I was reading one of my business journals today. They estimate approximately 200,000 businesses have closed for good during the last 15 months of the Chinese flu. And that again is another human tragedy. And the interesting thing though was it became a major shift of revenue. In other words, whatever these businesses were doing, obviously it was something people wanted or needed. So when the business closed, they had to go find it somewhere else. And usually the somewhere else was Amazon or, some major corporation. So basically what's happened is this, a chunk of the middle class has, been gone. It's lost. And actually all that happened was all the revenues ended up just moving up. So again, just another chunk of the middle class gone. I was talking to some people today that I know that they're fairly well connected out in Hollywood. And they were telling me, I was asking about, you got a lot of independent producers that are basically raising their own money to put their movies together, like the Roe v. Wade movie that is out. Hopefully, if you haven't seen it, I recommend you do. But a lot of those movies are being made by independent people. They have to find their own funding, everything. The Hollywood studio. I said, well, why aren't the Hollywood studios doing it? Because a few years ago, all the Hollywood studios, they all had faith divisions. Because there's a market there, right? And what my friend told me, he said, basically the Hollywood studios, and this is a quote, are done producing content for white Christian trash. So, not like you didn't know that's how you were viewed by the entertainment world, but that was a conversation I had just the other day. Speaking of Hollywood, this Bachelor guy, Colton Underwood, he came out, he was on The Bachelor again. I've never watched the show, honestly. I know what it's about. The reason I mention it is because it's a very popular show. That kind of trash sells. And he was The Bachelor like 6 months ago or something. And it was real. And they played up how he was a solid Christian, all that. And I mentioned this to you the other night. Well, he just came out. Now he's gay. Now he says he's gay. And the only reason I mentioned it again tonight is because I saw another article, and as I was flipping past it, I read a quote. He said, I'm so glad I came out as being gay because it's made me closer to God. And I read that and I said, yeah, well, unfortunately it's not the God, it's the God of this world. Sad. But hey, remember what I shared with you last night? 94% of the people in this country don't believe in a biblical worldview. And again, if you remember, I broke it down for you. Right now, probably 55% of the country is non-believer, 45% are believers. Well, basically what that's telling you is only 6% of those who identify as Christians actually hold a biblical worldview. In other words, the Bible is the absolute truth and our final authority in all matters. All right, so we laid a big foundation stone tonight with the one world government, the one world economy, the one world religion, the Antichrist. This whole thing at the Vatican, what an abomination. What an abomination. I mean, some people may think this is over the top, but I've made this comment before in years past about these churches, some of these churches that are just disgusting. I mean, they might as well just, show porn movies in the church, pass around trays of cocaine, open the bar on the side. I mean, this is how you're going to end up with a one world religion, my friend. I'm telling you, as older saints die, new ones come up, never been in church their whole life. And the prevailing religion is this feel-good Deepak Chopra, straight from the pits of hell gobbledygook, right? All right. Before we get out of here tonight for the weekend, if you never made a decision for Jesus, I'm going to give you a chance to do that right now because, we're talking about all this important stuff. This is all temporal. I got it. But, God gave us this life for a reason and a purpose. There's a reason God woke you up this morning because today wasn't promised to you. It was his gift to you. And for whatever time we have, as followers of Christ, we have an obligation to, do our part. And again, this gets back to the whole action thing. And as we're talking about the equipping the saints, the first action step was the email to 3 people a day, sharing the salvation message with 3 people. The second action step we started this week is a phone call, just 1 phone call a day. Doesn't have to be 6 hours. Somebody you haven't talked to for a while. Just see how they're doing. Check in on them. That word of encouragement goes so far you don't understand. All right? So, when this brief journey is over, the only thing that matters is, do you know Jesus? If you've never made a decision for Christ, but you want to make that decision tonight, pray with me right now. Dear Lord, tonight I come to you a sinner, confessing that, yes, indeed, I am a sinner, and asking you to forgive me of all my sins. Lord, tonight I believe in my heart, confess with my mouth that you, Jesus Christ, are my Lord and are my Savior, and my life is yours. I surrender to you tonight. Use me for your glory from this day forward. Thank you for dying on that cross so my sins could be forgiven and I could receive the promise of everlasting life. In Jesus' name I pray. My friend, if you prayed and you meant it, the Bible says you're saved, not because you said a few words, because of your faith in God's grace. Have a book I'll send you, won't cost you anything. Drop me an email, bkeller@liveprayer.com. I'll get it right out to you. If you need prayer for anything, please don't hesitate to email me. My email address coming up on the screen, bkeller@liveprayer.com, and I'll be happy to pray for you. And Lord willing, we'll be back here Monday night, 11 o'clock. In the meantime, I pray you have a wonderful weekend. Do something enjoyable this weekend. Get away from all the nonsense of this world for a little bit and enjoy yourself. Get to church. And as I said, Lord willing, we'll see you back here at 11 o'clock on Monday. God bless you.
What problems are you dealing with in your life right now?
Do you feel like